Hi, Mr. Recaps here. The film takes place in France in 1684 with a beautiful girl named Marie who was swimming in the sea in front of the convent where she grew up since birth. The nuns gather on the beach and try to bring Marie back to the convent because the king ordered them not to let her out, so much that Marie knows nothing about the outside world and does not yet know that the king of France named Louis is her real father. All Marie knows about her family is that her mother died during childbirth. The director of the convent tells Mary that she will have her imprisoned if she leaves the convent again, but Mary responds to her in a provocative manner and tells her that she will leave the convent whenever she wants. At the end of the day, King Louis returns to the palace and finds at his reception the French, who congratulate him very much because he has ruled France for a long time and has won many wars. One of the citizens shoots suddenly at King Louis, and fortunately, the bullet did not kill the king, who orders the guards to arrest the person who shot him, then enters the palace for treatment. The doctor tells King Louis that he has grown old and that he can die at any time, but that he can survive forever thanks to the heart of the mermaid, in which there is a substance similar to an antidote. The substance is capable of making the king remain immortal in the world forever. The doctor tells King Louis that the only condition for the success of the antidote is to kill the mermaid during the solar eclipse, which will occur in the next few days, so they must get to the mermaid as soon as possible. King Louis orders a group of sailors to cross the ocean under the command of Captain Ivan in search of the lost city of Atlantis, in which the mermaid lives, so that the king will use her heart to preserve his youth and live forever. The sailors see a lot of mermaids around the ship. Then they throw dynamite into the water to keep the small fish away from the fishing nets, which catch two mermaids. They decide to keep the female mermaid and throw the male into the sea. The king designed a lake in the palace to keep the mermaid until the day of the solar eclipse, and it is Captain Ivan who guards it with the help of the king's assistant named Peter. The next day, the king wakes up from his sleep and finds his assistant Peter sitting next to him. He tells him that they need a musician to play music on the day of the eclipse, as there is no musician in France who can perform on the day of the eclipse. The king is forced to bring his daughter Marie from the convent to play on the day of the eclipse, but asks Pierre not to tell him the truth. It is clear that the director of the convent is happy that Marie has left the convent because she does not like it. Marie is afraid of her new life, especially since she has not left the convent since her birth and knows nothing about France. Pierre reassures her and tells her that he will help her cope with her new life. Marie is fascinated by the appearance of life in the palace and feels like she is reborn because she sees new people. But Pierre interrupts her thinking and introduces her to his new assistant named Maggie, who tries to learn about Marie's life before coming to the palace. Mary talks to Maggie about her suffering at the convent and tells her that she is affected and knows nothing about her parents. The next day, Mary goes around the mansion with Maggie to get used to her being outside of the convent. Almost all the people look at Mary as if they are talking about her, and Mary seems to get nervous and tries to escape until she reaches a fountain located in the palace garden. She notices a statue in the center of the fountain, which seems to have been designed for her. King Louis goes out into the palace garden and notices that Mary is concentrating on the statue in the middle of the fountain and then falls into it after hearing the sound of the footsteps of King Louis's horse, which she sees for the first time. Dr. John tries to get closer to Mary, who doesn't care about him, and looks at the king, who covers her with his robe and asks her to get ready to play on Christmas Day. At the end of the day, Mary hears a strange but beautiful voice. She tries to trace the source of the sound until she reaches the lake where the mermaid is and sees her for the first time. Mary doesn't believe she is a mermaid because she thought mermaids don't exist only in novels and fairy tales. The mermaid looks at Mary as if she is asking her to save her from the king, but Mary knows nothing of the king's plan and then decides to use the mermaid's voice to compose new music on the day of the eclipse. Captain Ivan suddenly enters and tries to take Mary away from the lake, as it is forbidden to approach her or approach the mermaid. Mary seems to leave but continues to think about why the mermaid is calling her. The next day, a party takes place at the royal palace, and Mary wears an elegant dress and enters the party accompanied by Pierre, and all the guests stare at her because of her beauty. The king asks Mary to dance with him, and it seems that Mary doesn't know how to dance, but the king likes to dance with her. At the end of the day, Mary returns to the lake and talks to the mermaid because she became in love with her and considers her as her friend. Suddenly, Captain Ivan enters again and asks Mary to leave, but Mary ignores his words this time. The next day, Marie goes on a trip to the forest with the king, who paints a portrait of a woman who looks like his wife, who died while giving birth to Marie, and then asks her to keep the portrait. Mary returns to her room and hears the mermaid's voice again, then quickly goes to the lake and swims in its waters and approaches the mermaid for the first time. She notices that her features are beautiful and look like real humans. The mermaid quickly runs away because she heard Captain Ivan's voice. Mary seems to quickly come out of the lake, and Ivan helps her and tries to get closer to her, but Mary quickly leaves. The next day, Mary rides around the palace on horseback with Ivan, but they are surprised by the presence of Dr. John, who was trying to catch a pigeon. Mary appears to be concentrating with the pigeon, but suddenly falls to the ground and suffers a broken arm. Ivan quickly takes Mary to the mansion, but the doctor says Mary's arm should be removed. Mary refuses due to her fear of losing her arm. Meanwhile, Ivan sees a light coming out of the mermaid's body and understands that she is able to cure Mary. Ivan sneaks into Mary's room and takes her with him to the lake to meet the mermaid, who removes the light from her body, and it seems she managed to heal Mary's arm with ease. The next morning, the king is surprised to find that Mary's arm has become intact. Mary tells him that it was the mermaid who helped her, and the king seems to rejoice because he has become sure that the mermaid has super strength. Mary meets Ivan, who confesses his love to her and tells her that he helped her to get to the mermaid because he was afraid for her. The surprise is that Mary also confesses her love to him, and they get closer. Meanwhile, the king plans to end Mary and Ivan's joy because he offers Dr. John to marry Mary in exchange for giving her all his wealth, and naturally, John accepts because he admires Mary. The next day, the king confesses to Mary that he is her real father, then presents her with her mother's chain and tells her that he has decided to marry her to John. Mary goes up to her room and is devastated after realizing that her father wants to marry her to John for his personal benefit. At the end of the day, Mary visits the mermaid, who tells her that she has been caught and separated from her daughter, who was left alone. Marie is upset and ends up discovering that the king plans to kill the mermaid, then decides to stop him by all means. The assistant Pierre decides to leave the palace too because he refuses to participate in the murder of the mermaid after an unsuccessful attempt in stopping the king and Dr. John from killing the mermaid. Ivan tries to search Dr. John's room and finds drawings which indicate that the king is planning to kill the mermaid. He inserts the drawings under the door of Mary's room because she won't open the door for him. Dr. John sees Ivan and catches him, then decides to imprison him for sneaking into Mary's room, as she will become his wife soon. Mary enters the room, sees the drawings, and makes sure that the king really intends to kill the mermaid. She goes to his room and fights with him. Mary begs the king to allow the mermaid to be returned to her daughter and tells him that she is not allowed to marry John, but the king lies to her, saying that he has decided to kill the mermaid to maintain the stability of France. The king orders the guards to imprison Mary in the room until the day of the eclipse arrives. Mary asks for help from Pierre, then puts on her wedding dress and goes out with Pierre under the pretext of praying before the start of the wedding ceremony. The guard does not accept that Marie leaves with Pierre. Still, Pierre forces him to accept by saying that she is under the king's orders. He goes out with Marie and lets her go save the mermaid. During this time, Ivan leaves prison, and the doctor orders him to put the mermaid in a box because she will be killed the next day. Mary arrives at the lake and tries to convince Ivan to save the mermaid and run away together to start a new life. Ivan seems convinced by Mary's words and then orders his men to prepare ships to rescue the mermaid, but news of their escape reaches Dr. John. The doctor tries to stop Mary and Ivan from saving the mermaid, but Ivan fights fiercely with him. Still, Dr. John shoots his gun at Ivan, who falls into the lake. The doctor tries to attack Mary to kill her, but Mary manages to get rid of him with difficulty and end his life. The mermaid manages to escape from the lake and goes to the ocean, taking Ivan with her to get the bullet out of his body. Mary tries to go to the mermaid's place in the ocean, but the king tries to catch up with her and asks her to return with him to the palace. Mary refuses and throws away her mother's chain that he gave her. Then, she jumps into the ocean in a dangerous leap. The mermaid tries to save Mary from death due to the dangerous jump and also saves Ivan. Mary decides to stay with him and dives into the depths of the ocean with the mermaid to see the lost city of Atlantis for the first time in his life. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you like the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.